Hi everyone who is watching Ladies of Substance. This is teacher Aidah Nabukenya from Trinity College in Abingo, welcoming you to this lesson. Let us continue observing the SOPs, washing hands, sanitizing, and staying at home. Let us protect each other from this pandemic. Today, whoever is watching, we are going to look at King Solomon. We know that King Solomon was the third king of Israel who took over power after his father David. Who was King Solomon? King Solomon was a son of David and Bathsheba. Bathsheba, while looking at David, we discovered that she was the former wife of Uriah the Hittite. But when David had an affair with her, it led to the death of Uriah, and now we are seeing David bringing her to the palace to become his official wife. And the firstborn died, but Solomon later came in as a result of having love between King David and Bathsheba. Now, King Solomon succeeded his father David to become the third king of Israel after a promise that David had made to Bathsheba, and David fulfilling this promise of Solomon becoming the successor. It was initiated by Prophet Nathan and Bathsheba. There are so many factors that led to Solomon's rise to power as the third king of Israel, and one of them was God's will for Solomon to become the next king of Israel. If God had not wished Solomon to be king, he would not have become a king over his people. But when Nathan and Bathsheba approached David over the fulfillment of the promise, this came after one of the sons of David had crowned himself king. So God gives wisdom to Prophet Nathan. They come to David, and David gives them a go-ahead to go and crown Solomon king or successor of David. Then David had become too old and therefore could not perform the duties of a king properly. At that time, David was so old, and we had a young girl called Abishag who was brought to give him company. So David, his old age, forced Solomon to be the next heir of the kingdom of Israel. Then the popularity that David had lost among the people. David, though he was a good king, we saw his weaknesses: decentralizing power, failure to take good care of the northerners, and then fighting so many wars. This made David to lose popularity among the Israel. And what made him to lose that popularity again was the census that he carried out without the consent of God. So Solomon comes in as the favorite of the people of Israel, and then he becomes king over them. There was another factor of David having so much care for Solomon, and then he promised Bathsheba that Solomon would succeed him. If David had not had that concern for Solomon, maybe he would not have become the third king of Israel. Then the support of the religious leaders like Prophet Nathan, Zadok, to Solomon also made him to become the third king of Israel. Remember, Prophet Nathan came with Bathsheba to the old King David and told him about the promise that he had made long time ago to Bathsheba. So this support was there. And when David told them to go and make Solomon king, even Zadok came in as the chief priest, and they crowned him as king over the people. Solomon was supported by the military. When Adonijah, his brother, had claimed to be the king of Israel, we are seeing the army commanders of Israel coming in to inform David of what Adonijah had come. And then when Solomon was crowned as king, the army gave him their support. And we are seeing the gentleman ruling Israel for a very long time. Then David, having lost the control over his family, we have these instances that came out as a fulfillment of the prophecies of Prophet Nathan when David had committed a double sin of murder and taking possession of Uriah's wife. We are seeing Ammon raping his half-sister Tamar, and then through this confusion, Solomon came in and became the king of Israel. Solomon himself had this character. He was humble, he was well behaved, and he respected his father. Only the respect that Solomon gave to David as the father won the heart of David. And then David made Solomon to be the next king after him. So there are so many factors when we read the Bible commentary. We shall find there are so many other points. So as you make your research, as you read ahead, as you read your Bible, you'll find out more factors. But dear viewers and listeners, let us look at the greatness, the achievements, the glory of King Solomon. What achievements did Solomon achieve for the kingdom of Israel as the third king? One, Solomon asked for wisdom from God. He used this wisdom to rule the kingdom of Israel. Solomon was the wisest king the world has ever seen. We shall see this wisdom when the two prostitutes came and they wanted the king to rule over both of them. One had killed his child, and then she claimed the child of another. But Solomon used a lot of wisdom to see that justice was served between the two prostitutes. So that was an achievement. Dear viewers, if God asked you what you want, I think most of us we would ask for money, for cars, for good husbands, but Solomon asked for wisdom. Then the other one, Solomon built the temple of Jerusalem for God. Remember when David wanted to build a temple for God, God promised him that it will be your son Solomon, it will be one of your sons to do that. And we are seeing Solomon as the next king, as a son of David, building this temple for God. It was too magnificent that there is no building in this world that we can compare with the old temple of Jerusalem. Then Solomon was a great merchant. He promoted trade and commerce. Solomon had fleet ships that used also to come to Africa as far as Zaire, now the present Democratic Republic of Congo. Solomon had mines there, and this helped in the development of Israel. Then Solomon developed port facilities and other infrastructures. We can look at the port of Ezion and Siba. All these helped in development of trade and making the lives of the Israelites better. He beautified the city of Jerusalem. For example, he built a very beautiful palace for himself. This building was good. It was nice because it took him 13 years to build such a palace. And this added value to the city of Jerusalem. King Solomon, we are seeing him composing 3,000 proverbs and 1,000 songs, which were used to glorify God. In the worshipping of God in Israel, these proverbs and songs of songs were used in the worship of Yahweh in the synagogues and the temple of Jerusalem. Then Solomon reorganized the internal administration of Israel. He appointed talented tax administrators to manage and collect the tax. This tax was used in catering for the army, the top administrators, building infrastructures, and then running the day-to-day administrative needs of kingship in Israel. Then he dedicated the Jerusalem temple to God in an extravagant way. Visitors came as far as Africa to go and see this Jerusalem temple. In that dedication, people ate, people drank, and then they worshipped their Yahweh. That was an achievement. Solomon was a great diplomat. We are seeing him signing treaties with foreign kings like King Hiram of Tyre, the kings of Egypt, the king of Ethiopia, and this brought peace and security to the kingdom of Israel, and people lived peacefully. They carried out their trade and commerce peacefully. They worshipped their God peacefully because of the truce that he had with the neighbors. He built a strong army. Solomon's army had 2,000 chariots and 12,000 cavalry. All these were used in defending the people of Israel. Solomon used this army to defeat the enemies of Israel. Then we are seeing Solomon being a God-fearing person. He prayed to God to bless his kingdom. We shall look at the dedication of the temple. In his prayer, he asked God to bless every person who would visit Jerusalem, who would come to pray in the temple, he asked God to bless all the people, their works, their families, and all this showed that Solomon was a God-fearing person. Then Solomon promoted and maintained justice. We have just looked at the case of the two prostitutes. You'll go and read 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 16 to 28. Then you'll discover the wisdom that Solomon used in judging this case because it was a very tough case to judge. And it needed someone with wisdom to do so. So for today, that is all we can look at King Solomon. We have looked at his greatness, achievements, or the glory of King Solomon. Now, I'm leaving you with this assignment. You'll go and read 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 11 to 53. You discover, you analyze the circumstances for the rise of Solomon to power as the king of Israel. I know this question is not a common question, but depending on what happened in 2021 USCE exam, such questions have started to be asked. So you read there, you narrate the story. The question wants you to narrate the story, to tell the story the way it is biblically evidenced. And then you write how Solomon came to power as a king of Israel. Do not leave out the details of the Bible. Present the Bible facts that are presented in that chapter of 1 Kings, chapter 1, verse 11 to 53. I've been teacher Aidah from Trinity College, Nabingo. Stay safe and safeguard other people from the pandemic of COVID-19. May the good Lord bless you.